What is going on, everyone? My name is Mr. Rage22. Welcome back to my game reviews. And today's game review, we are talking about one of my favorite games of all time. And I don't just mean my favorite horror game of all time. I mean in general. This is my favorite game of all time, Outlast. Um, as you guys know, I made a video a couple weeks back talking about why I kind of hated this game and why I thought it was extremely overrated. And I still think it's overrated. And for anyone who thinks that I'm just some hater who's like hating on the game, let me quickly start by saying that not only is that the furthest from the truth, I love this game to death. Nothing in this game can actually make me hate it, alright? What I meant to say in that video was this game just makes me angry sometimes. There's a lot of things I don't like about it, but a lot of things I also love about it, you know? There's just a lot of small little issues that kind of piss me off, but this is one of my favorite games of all time, but I do still think it's overrated because I don't think there is any such thing as a best game of all time or a best horror game of all time. So I still think this game is pretty overrated. But that doesn't mean I love it any less. So anyone who thinks that I'm a hater, please shut the fuck up and actually stop talking out of your asshole because I do not hate this game and I am not a hater of Outlast. I just think it is a little overrated, just like Amnesia and a lot of other games like Resident Evil 7 and The Evil Within. All those games are extremely overhyped and very overrated. Not saying they're bad games, but they sure as hell don't deserve like the 9s and 10 out of 10s that they get. But without further ado, let's talk about Outlast, why I love this game, and if you should also get this game. So, I want to talk a little bit about the story first, and let me also start by saying that, as you know, all of my game reviews are spoiler free when it comes to the story because I know that there are a lot of people out there who really love and appreciate the stories for these games and do not want to have it spoiled for them. So, this review is spoiler free, but I do talk briefly about the story, just to let you know, just like, I just say what type of story it is so that way you'll know if you'll like it. Outlast has a very dark and maniacal story and I also like how it takes a very cliche concept and kind of makes it brand new again. We all know that, giant creepy ass asylums are really scary and stuff, and usually in those cheesy horror movies, a bunch of characters go in and inside the asylum, there was like obviously, patients there who were, insane and they were being tortured, and, now the asylum is abandoned and now it's haunted by the spirits of the patients who were tortured there, and oh, scary ghosts, all that stupid stuff. But basically, what Outlast does is it takes the creepy asylum story and actually makes it horrifically realistic. The story is also very dark and maniacal. I don't think I've ever seen a story in a horror game that was as dark, twisted, and also downright tragic and depressing as the one in Outlast. So if you're someone who enjoys stories like that, you'll definitely love Outlast just for the story alone. Because we're gonna get into gameplay in a bit. And also the story is a little vague at first. Like when you first actually play the game for the first time, the story may be a little vague. But as you figure it out and piece it together, and put the puzzle together, and you actually realize what the story is actually saying and what the story is truly about. It's like you'll learn to appreciate it even more once you actually figure it out because it is a teeny bit vague, but just like me, when I figured it out, I appreciated the story a lot more, and it actually affected me like the developers intended it to. So that's the story. Now let's actually talk about the gameplay. Now, Outlast, I just want to say Outlast is not, I repeat, not a walking simulator. Because for some reason, a lot of dumbasses think that Outlast is just another boring walking simulator. Let me start by saying it is not a walking simulator. It's definitely not a walking simulator. The game does have exploration, but I feel like what a walking simulator really is a game like The Suicide of Rachel Foster, which is a really shitty game, by the way, and Layers of Fear, which is another shitty game. Those are walking simulators because all you do in those games is literally just walk and open doors and walk and open doors. While Outlast does have that, you are not just doing that same thing over and over again, just walking aimlessly. You are exploring, solving objectives, and being chased by, the enemies in the game. So it is not a walking simulator. So, what you'll, like, for the most part, what you'll be doing in Outlast is you will be exploring this giant asylum, Mount Massive Asylum. And like I was just saying, you are not just going to be aimlessly walking in this game. So if you're someone who gets bored quicker, you just don't like the idea of just walking aimlessly for hours upon hours on end, you don't got to worry about that because you will like this game. If you're someone who's like that, someone who doesn't want just another boring walking simulator horror game. And while I do like personally, I do like walking simulators. I do like the idea of that. I know you may be thinking, well, how could you like just doing that same thing over and over again? Well, it's because I like to immerse myself, and like I like the environments that these games put you in. And if you're someone who has a similar mindset, just actually like immersing yourself and like just really taking your time and exploring this new world and environment that you've been put in, then you'll like the game even more. But even for people who don't, you'll still like the game because like even while you're exploring in this game, you will never feel safe in this game. Like throughout this game, you are always going to be like filled with tension and always on edge while you are even exploring Mount Massive Asylum. And like I said, if you're someone who actually likes to explore these environments and explore the new world that you're in these games, like truly immersing yourself, you're definitely going to love Outlast. But like I was saying, the game, like you're never safe in the game. The game, there's never a time in the game where you're just exploring without something actually happening to you, or without you seeing something that's just downright terrifying. So the game does keep you busy while you are, doing the exploration in the game. And like I said, it's just so much fun actually exploring Mount Mass. Seeing all the carnage around you and just like reading the documents and just like exploring this giant ass asylum with that claustrophobic feel. It's honestly really really good. So for fans of exploration in their horror games and like those like to explore and stuff, you will like the game. But even for those who don't like exploring that much, if you're someone who's a little bit more into action, you will also be pleasantly surprised because, like I said, you will never be safe in this game. The game will always have you filled with tension, and you're always going to be at the edge of your seat because there's something that's always hunting you down in this game. And even when there's something not chasing you as you're exploring, you're always seeing just some of the most maniacal shit in any horror game. Like you are going to be seeing so much disturbing stuff in this game that it will get under your skin. So yeah, now what is the second element of the gameplay? So Outlast does not have any boring ass and shitty cryptic puzzles. I'm someone who doesn't really like cryptic puzzles in horror games like this new horror game like Tormented Souls or the original Resident Evil. I do not like cryptic puzzles. They just really make my head hurt and like they make me overthink. So I do not like puzzles. So if you're someone who like you like Resident Evil puzzles, like the puzzles from the Resident Evil and the Silent Hill series, and you just like puzzles in your horror games, then you may not like Outlast because um this game is completely free, and I mean 100% free of puzzles. There is not a single puzzle in this game. You are going to be like the only thing you'll be doing in this game is solving the objectives. While of course you got the exploration, you will be solving objectives. And like that's what I like about Outlast. I love how straightforward the game is. There's no dumbass cryptic puzzles where like and there's so many horror games. Even Resident Evil, which is another very overrated horror game and not a very good one actually. I do not like Resident Evil, by the way. Um, like you're supposed to be scared. Like it's like there's scary things all around you. You're surviving, and it's scary. Oh, here's a puzzle. I guess whatever was chasing me or whatever's trying to kill me is just gonna disappear now, and all the horror is gone, and now you just gotta focus all on the stupid ass puzzle. Well, no, Outlast has none of that, and I absolutely love that. I love the fact that the game is not trying to shove these stupid cryptic puzzles down your throat, even if there was any, because there's not. You are just trying to survive in this game. This is a 100% survival horror game, and I love it just because of that. And like I said, if you're someone who like for some reason, if you actually like solving cryptic puzzles where you gotta look up a fucking guide or you just gotta overthink things for whatever reason, then you're probably not gonna like this game. But if you're someone who just wants a really fun horror game where you are doing just that, surviving the horrors of this game or just a scary situation, you're gonna be just like me and you're gonna like it, because I am someone who appreciates the fact that there are no puzzles in this game. The objectives, it's a tricky one. The objectives are a teeny bit repetitive, but for the most part they do have variety. There's one objective where you gotta find 3 fuses. There was one where you gotta find a key. There's one where you gotta turn a couple of valves. And another thing I really like is while you are actually solving these objectives, you are also still being chased and hunted down. So the game really does a great job at keeping you on your toes because not only are you trying to survive the thing that's trying to kill you, which can either be, one of the enemies like Chris Walker or like just one of the variants. I like how the game does such a great job at actually keeping your attention, keeping you busy. There is never going to be a moment where you are going to just be bored in this game. So anyone who says that Outlast is a boring game, I feel bad for your mindset because this is not a boring game at all. I mean, only if you want it to be. It's only boring if you make it boring. Because, like I said, you have to actually be a fan of exploration to actually really get a kick out of this game. Um, but yeah, so I like how much variety the game has because like even while you're like solving these objectives and like getting them done and making progress, it's still also really fun actually like outmaneuvering the enemies, sneaking away from them, and it feels satisfying when you actually complete your objectives while at the same time you are actually surviving against the enemy who's trying to kill you. It's satisfying, it's fun, it's tense, it's honestly amazing. So, while the objectives are a teeny bit boring, for the most part, they do have their own variety and they do require different tactics to actually complete them. So, those will keep you busy, definitely. Another aspect of the game is actually the enemies themselves, running and hiding from the enemies. This is what Outlast is all about. Just running and hiding from the enemies, and the running feels great in this game. Every time the enemies spot you, and like the music starts ramping up, and like the enemies start screaming after you, cursing at you, and like you're being chased by them, and you're like turning all around, trying to make sure you don't run into something because like running into a dead end will get you killed in this game. So it just makes the horrifying and scare factor all the more worse because like that you might be able to like you might go into a dead end, you might run into something, or you just like the enemy might catch up with you if you're not going fast enough. The chases are honestly great in this game, and being chased in general is absolutely incredible. So the chase scenes are just perfect. So that pretty much covers the gameplay. You've got your objectives that you'll be solving, you've got the exploration, you got the running and hiding. The game also does have a couple of really, really good stealth sections as well. So if you're someone who like really likes to be stealthy and like immerse yourself, because let's be honest, if you were actually in this type of situation, you're not gonna just like try and run away. You're gonna try and hide. Anyone would try and hide if they were actually in that type of situation. At least I would. But yeah, the game has some stealth scenes here and there. That's why the game is also satisfying because using the stealth in the game is satisfying, and actually like being chased is satisfying. Like when you like actually outmaneuver your enemy and like you like when you're vaulting over stuff, closing the doors on their faces and actually getting away and like reaching safety. It feels really satisfying because the game does have a little bit of some calmer moments here and there. The game does give you a little bit of time to breathe, but like I said, you are never ever safe in this game. And we gotta talk about the exploration for a little bit again for like a minute. Just exploring in this game is just really, really good. And like I said, even if you don't like exploration, you'll still like this game because like even while you're exploring the Mount Massive Asylum, it's still gonna keep you busy. Either when you're trying to solve an objective or like you're like looking around. The game does a really good job at actually keep you interested, and it actually encourages you, and it does a great job at actually making you want to explore. So the exploration is great, and so are the objective solving. And people may think it's bad that the game doesn't have puzzles. I remember this one asshole criticized the game because he said it didn't have any puzzles. Bro, that's a good thing that it doesn't have puzzles because so many other horror games have them and it's just getting boring. Outlast is the only game that actually does something really good. You are not solving dumbass cryptic puzzles that were put by God only knows who. You are just trying to make progress and survive in this game. And making progress also feels really good. Like when you solve your objective and like you reach a new segment of the asylum and you're getting closer to actually like beating the game or just like getting to a new area. It feels really good and it feels really, really satisfying. So that's the gameplay segment for the most part. Next thing we're going to talk about are graphics. Outlast graphics look really, really good. And for a game that came out in 2013, I think it was, yeah, 2013, this game honestly still looks pretty good. Like, especially Outlast Whistleblower. Like, there's a lot of scenes in Outlast Whistleblower that look just absolutely amazing. So, the graphics are absolutely great. They still hold up. Performance wise, the game does have some frame rate drops if you are playing on Xbox One or PS4 or especially Nintendo Switch. Actually, the Switch version is great too. Just but all three of those consoles have some slight frame rate drops. But which indie game doesn't? I was on Series X, so the game played flawlessly. But for the most part, there are barely any hiccups. The game runs really smooth. It feels smooth, so you don't gotta worry about any of that. Now we're gonna talk about the game's scare factor, real quick. This is a game that does have a couple of jump scares. But one thing that I like about the jump scares in Outlast is, unlike layers of dog shit, aka layers of fear, the jump scares are not all being shoved down your throat. They're not like all over they're not all over the place to the point where you could actually expect when it's going to happen. This game does a great job with its jump scares. It gets you when you're actually scared. Like it's like the game knows when you're actually kind of freaked out, or kind of like when your heart is filled with tension and something's gonna come up and it still gets you. So the jump scares are good. But another thing I really like is the game's visual horror. I'm someone who thinks that visual horror is a lot better than jump scares because, anything could be a jump scare because it's not actually the scare that's scaring you. I mean, a fucking cat could jump scare you, but it's not that actually scares you. It's the sound. It frightens you. It startles you. But visual horror is a lot better. If you show if you show the player or like someone who's watching a scary movie, this even goes for scary movies, by the way. If you show someone something that's extremely disturbing or just extremely terrifying or very unsettling, that shit is going to follow them into their nightmares. That's going to stick inside their head. So visual horror is a lot better because it actually affects the player or the movie watcher when they're like in movies too, because this also goes for horror movies. And it also just goes show just how bad jump scares are. It's just a cheap scare. Visual horror is the best way to go because if you show someone that's something that's extremely unsettling, something that's extremely terrifying, that's gonna stick inside their head. It's gonna be like stepping in gum. That's gonna stick inside their head. So visual horror is a lot better, and Outlast has a lot of that shit. Outlast has some extremely disturbing visual horror, lots of body horror, a lot of unsettling imagery, and it will get under your skin. This shit will disturb the fuck out of you. So that's the game's scare factor. The second scare factor is, obviously the enemies themselves. The enemies are pretty scary looking. The variants, their faces, and just what they do. The variants themselves are very unsettling. Like just watching them in their own insanity and like seeing what's happened to them and seeing what they're doing while being trapped inside this asylum. Their actions actually kind of scare the fuck out of you because there's this one inmate who he's like hitting his head repeatedly into the wall. And just watching them in their own insanity. The variants have so much variety too. Like they all have their own different personalities. They all have their own different personalities of insanity. It's all really really good, and that's another really good thing about the scare factor. Now for a couple of frustrations. The door closing in this game is absolutely horrendous. The fact that I could actually close myself in by accidentally shutting the door on my own self is just terrible because you gotta press the button just right. But I think they definitely could have done a much better job at the door closing. And the controls in general in Outlast, um, they're I don't want to say absolutely terrible. They're obviously not, but I don't want to say they're amazing either. Unfortunately, the controls are kind of shitty in some aspects. I found myself running into walls a lot, and whenever I would try and jump over something, my character would just kind of just awkwardly jump into the air instead. So the controls are kind of shitty. And just getting killed in a game is also very frustrating because I know that the game is about running and hiding, but I really wish they could have added a little bit more variety into actually defending yourself into this game because all you can really do is just loop the enemies. And that's one other thing I forgot to say about the gameplay. You could kind of loop the enemies around this game, kind of like how you can do in Dead by Daylight. Like if there's an obstacle, you could basically just loop whoever's chasing you around it. The only one that I actually couldn't really loop around was the Wall Rider because he's like the ghost, the enemy, he could go through stuff he floats, but all the the foot soldiers, the enemies actually chase after you on foot. I was able to loop them around for infinity. And that's another thing. I feel like the game is a little too easy. I've seen so many dumbasses saying that Outlast 1 is harder than Outlast 2. Which fucking game did you play? This game is not very difficult. Even on the hardest difficulty, this game was just painfully easy. I mean, sure, some of the more threatening enemies like Chris Walker and Frank Manera and Eddie Gluskin and Walrider and Rick Trigger, yes, they were a bit harder to deal with on Nightmare mode and a lot more challenging to deal with, because like now they're a one-hit kill, they run faster, they can hear you more. But even then, the game is just a little too easy, I think. Like, even on the hardest difficulty. So if you're a casual, then you're probably going to love this because you're probably going to feel good about yourself because you could probably play this game on the hardest difficulty and not feel like the game is so difficult to the point where you can't even enjoy it. But if you're a hardcore player like me and you actually want the game to be very difficult and very challenging, you might be a little disappointed because this game is surprisingly easy on the hardest difficulty. And I do find that as a problem because this is a game that's obviously trying to scare the shit out of you and challenge you and make the game itself, like the developers said they want to make the players suffer, and like although it may make you suffer the first time you play on the hardest difficulty or even the normal difficulty, as like the more you play the game, like as you play it more, the game just becomes a little too easy in my personal opinion, and you may feel the same way, especially if you want more challenging horror games like The Evil Within. Alright guys, last thing we're going to talk about is the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this game was absolutely incredible. The guy, I forgot his name, it was Samuel something. His last name started with an L. Samuel something. The chase music in this game, absolutely incredible. The game has so much variety in its soundtrack. There's a lot of creepy and just downright unsettling themes that start playing. Some more calmer themes like that kind of have like a violin, like a really cool violin. My personal two favorite themes is the Mail War chase theme and the Wall Riders chase theme. I love them a lot. They're my personal favorite. But yeah, this game's soundtrack, it's pretty damn good. The game has a fantastic soundtrack as well. Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my review for Outlast. We have covered the gameplay, the scare factor, graphics, performance, and soundtrack, along with, just the scare factor and everything else. The last thing I really want to talk about, just my extra 2 cents, is I really like this game's characters. And as someone who loves to explore in this game, because like when I play like walking simulator horror games or just any horror game that involves a lot of exploration, here's how you could actually get into it because I want you to get into it. Just really immerse yourself. I mean, just pretend you're really there, like really put yourself into the game and you will enjoy the exploration, and not just this game, but any horror game that involves exploration, because exploration in general is fun. Like if you don't like exploring, and not just horror games but any game, then I think you might actually be fucking soulless. So yeah, the exploration absolutely amazing. The objective solving really good. I give Outlast an 8 out of 10. The only thing I really didn't like about the game was there were just some things that pissed me off. The objectives were a teeny bit repetitive, and the game does have some frustrations. Controls were kind of shitty, a little outdated. And I just like the fact that you can't fight back in this game. I mean, I'm not saying give me a fucking shotgun and just let me blast away. I'm just saying, let me fight back a little bit at least. Like, I don't like, when I get killed in this game, I don't feel like, wow, this game really does make me feel like, this game really does, like, make me useless, like, all that stuff, and, like, it's, like, it's trying to make me feel useless, but also helpless. Like, it doesn't make me feel useless or helpless. I feel like I'm a dumbass. I feel like I'm a dumbass who doesn't know the first thing about actually defending myself, and that's what I don't like about it. That's why I think the game is a little overrated. But yeah, Outlast, it's a pretty scary game. And not just because of the actual visual horror and like the jump scares and the enemies, but also the story. The story itself is pretty terrifying, because like you realize what actually is happening here inside this asylum and like the company Murkoff that's doing all this. So yeah, all really good stuff. But anyways, guys, that was my review for Outlast. I really, really, really hope you enjoyed this review. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I always do with my videos. Every time I make a game review, I always make sure to do plenty of research and to put plenty of time and effort. And I always make sure to spit true facts. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you enjoy my review. If you've made it this far, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate you for actually sticking by. And I really hope you enjoyed the rest of my game reviews. And more reviews are to come. If you guys want me to review another game, let me know down in the comments. Tell you what, Would you like me to review like The Evil Within or Resident Evil? Because I do like one of the Resident Evil games. Don't worry, I don't hate all of them. But yeah, just let me know. Like, let me know what horror game do you guys want to see me review? Because I do own every horror game on Xbox. So likewise, I probably have the game that you're thinking of, if it's on console, that is. But yeah. Anyways, guys, this was my review for Outlast. Great game. Definitely go out and pick it up. It's definitely still worth it. The game is $20, not a lot. For $20, you could experience one hell of a fun ride because that is exactly what Outlast is. It is nothing less than that. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching my review. Really hope you enjoyed. But yeah, guys, this was my review for Outlast, and this was another one of my reviews. Anyways, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. This was Mr. Rage 22 signing off. Bye bye, guys, and have a good one. Happy gaming.